shot.
Well, scary.
Thank you.
I wouldn't mind just saying just a couple comments on some of these numbers, just from someone who's been in the industry now for 8 years, just to give an idea of kind of what I see in relation to this and what we've dealt with in Enniskillen Township, which is not too far from here. As far as the water system goes, I know that seems to be the big, that's a huge chunk of the development fee that you're looking at. In Enniskillen right now, we use 10% of the water that goes through that system, and that water is all drawn at night. And I would assume that most of the rest of the water through that system is either for residential or for livestock farms. I think that'd be very similar to what Lambton Shores would see. So they're drawing their water through the daytime, and then we're drawing at night and storing in our own storage on site, so that we're not as big of an effect on tying up those pipeline capacities. And when you look at a water system, you've got a certain amount of operational costs, and then you've got a certain amount of infrastructure cost. I would assume that in this municipality it's a very high infrastructure cost, because there's a lot of expansion in the system fairly recently. And so the more water you can get through those pipes to help pay for that system, the better. So if you can have that water flowing through those pipes in the daytime, feeding the pig barns and the dairy barns and residential, and then have water flowing through those same pipes at night, feeding a greenhouse that's filling up their storage tanks, you're getting a lot more use out of that infrastructure, and in a way I think it's a benefit to the water system to get more output, more water through that you can charge for. A very good example of this is in Exeter. There's one greenhouse that's 20 acres and another greenhouse that's 40 acres, and so that's in South Huron, which would be a very similar municipality. Those greenhouses were both operating on well water, and I think partially just because of the cost of water. Now they did a big upgrade to the water system. I'm not sure what year it was, but I think within the last 5 years. And a lot of it was for the cannery that was in town. And the cannery has since shut down and moved, and now they have a large infrastructure that they weren't getting enough output through, so the water rates were quite high, or that money had to come from elsewhere. And since then, they've gone to the greenhouses and said, okay, let's get you guys on here, and let's get this water flowing through the system. And they actually have a reduced rate for high volume users because they're putting that through the system. So, to charge a development fee on something that's actually a benefit to the whole system and a benefit to everybody that's using water to get flow through that infrastructure, that just seems crazy. And then as far as the transportation, that's a quite large number too. For a greenhouse, you could go up to a 25-acre greenhouse, and you'd be doing 1 truckload a day. And that's 9 months of the year, 5 days a week. When you look at a dairy farm, they're 7 days a week, year round. You'd have more truck traffic from that milk truck than you would from a 25-acre greenhouse. Where on a 25-acre greenhouse, you'd be looking at a development charge of $5 million at what those rates are. So that's crazy. Yeah. And then just the sheer numbers on it, like to build an acre of the actual greenhouse area costs $100 a square meter. Now we're talking a development charge of 50. That's a huge number. No one's going to build a greenhouse here at those kind of figures. So that's just kind of my input from a greenhouse operator and someone who's interested in potentially building in Lambton Shores. So.
Okay. Anyone else on any of the charges or comments? Mr. Matson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Scanlon, I don't hold you responsible for this chart. This chart has been in question for 4 years so far. It's been refuted by Wally Kratz. It's the growth forecast. It's been refuted by the Zone 3 group completely. It's been refuted by Wally Kratz, who spent months going back and forth over all the information that Deputy Mayor Dec commented on earlier. Part of the problem I see here is that if the numbers aren't this high, then the costs become higher for those that are here. That's why you have to solve the issue over the nursery, because you want more of them, because they'll create more business, more money, etc. Let's call that our industry. This is a farm community. That's our industry. We're not building cars, we're not building airplanes, we're making food. And these people are to be congratulated and thanked, because I eat a fair amount of that food. As far as these numbers, Mr. Scanlon, I don't know where you got them. I've heard from your associate that a good portion of them came from Dillon. Those numbers came out of Lambton Shores back in 2006, 2004, with an intent to build a giant plant. The intent's gone. The numbers should be looked at correctly. Thank you very much.
Anyone else before Councilor Russell's just itching to make a motion?
Go ahead. You go ahead. You still want me to agree?
Mr. Wald?
Gary, in your report, you mentioned industrial, and there is the authority to exempt industrial, is that correct? And in the legislation. And would it be correct to say that industrial use is a high consumer of water and that type of thing, or they could be very much similar to agriculture? So there's a precedent there. If farming is our agriculture, as the man from Grand Bend mentioned, there's a public policy, there's reasoning there where you could justify exempting bona fide farm use and classifying large-scale farm greenhouses under the bona fide farm use. And the reasoning being, although they are consuming large volumes of water just like industry, it's economic growth. Could you justify that?
As I noted, it's when we do the calculations are what they are. But then it's the policies that are set by council, and that's to go through this process to advise what their abilities are. You're not being forced into having a bylaw. If you want to not have a bylaw, you don't have to have a bylaw. You don't have to impose the charges that are calculated. You can choose to phase in, keep them lower. Like churches, don't charge churches, but charge other types of businesses, whatever. I mean, it's your policy. This is your municipality. We go through a public process, so you seek input. I mean, that's all part of the process. I take no offense if you choose to, whatever your policies are yours. I'm just an advisor to talk about, what the implications are monetarily or whatever. And at the end of the day, you have to feel comfortable with this. Then after you input it, monitor it, and then see, where your judgments, your perspectives, right, wrong, does it validate it? Next time around, should we do further requirements? I mean, it's all part of a collective between staff and council, the consultant, and the public. So, as I say, I take no offense. This is part of what meets the expectations of the municipality, and your expectation and your vision is the key thing.
So Councilor Russell, I think
I've got a resolution if you would entertain it, Mr. Mayor.
I think Mr. Mateo.
Oh, Mr. Patel.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm Paul Pateo. Oh, sorry. Can you say something?
No, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Council.
Sorry, I see your hand.
I'm not as well spoken as the previous guys here, so please forgive me. I'm more of a doer than a speaker. In regards to the development charges, we went from 0 in what year was that, Patty? 2005 to over $9,000 within 3 years. Was it 3 years or 6? What was it?
Phased it in for 3 now.
Phased in for 3. So that hurt, but was it completely detrimental to the growth of Grand Bend? And I'll speak to Grand Bend because that's most of my work is. It hurt, but most of my clientele come from London, Kitchener, Toronto, so they're kind of used to the numbers. Okay, so when I say, yeah, it's this, they kind of got